Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, it was a very stress-free week, and the only reason why that was is because Pitt didn't play this week. So there was no wins, no losses, but I guess technically, since there wasn't a loss, it's still technically a win. Obviously, West Virginia lost last night, obviously, in horrific fashion. So that was pretty crazy to watch of what they've turned into. But overall, tonight, we get to look at the opportunity that really Pitt has in front of itself. Pitt currently ranked 19th in the country. We'll talk about that tonight. But obviously, too, the Syracuse Orange coming to Acrisure Stadium on Thursday night at 7:30 this coming week. Obviously, Pitt practiced today. Pat Narduzzi had his press conference on a Friday, obviously, so he can kick it off, get the team rolling. They had practices during the bye week. Obviously, worked on a number of different things, so the offensive side of the football, the defensive side of the football, and special teams. So we'll talk about what the Syracuse Orange look like and why Kyle McCord, the quarterback of the Syracuse Orange, transferred in from the Ohio State University, why he is the best quarterback that we'll face so far this year. We'll talk about Fran Brown, the new head football coach at Syracuse, but also, too, the atmosphere that's going to be needed at Acrisure Stadium on a Thursday night. I will certainly be there. I will be there all damn game. I'll be getting up for work and going to my office on Friday morning. We'll still be doing that, but I expect a great atmosphere out of Pitt fans. I expect people to show up, and we'll talk about that tonight. Obviously, a new feature tonight. Obviously, a number of people reached out to me. I missed a lot of comments the last time we were in the chat. Down below, you'll see the super chat comment. If you put in a super chat, donate to the show. I'll make sure no matter what, I'll have your question up on the screen no matter what, because it pops up on my screen here and highlighted, so I'll be able to see it. So the super chats are now officially a part of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. But guys, you always know how this goes. The show is sponsored by Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Guys, again, tremendous people, run by two great Pitt men, two season ticket holders to the University of Pittsburgh. They don't miss games, I can tell you that. But overall, whenever you can help out a small business, it's a great thing to be able to do so. It's incredible to meet these great people. Obviously, the customer service is great, but they also have a massive selection at Colonial Beer between your heavier lagers, your light beers. Also, too, the Icy Light Pit cans, they have those there. And also the Fake Slide Pilsner, which helps pay the players and helps support Alliance 412, which is a preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Again, guys, go see my friends at Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Secondly, the show is also sponsored by one of our new sponsors, and that is Brian Thompson, Thompson Law Firm, Thompson Law Group, and Brian Thompson, an attorney on your side. Right now, with many people struggling with the economy and rising costs, they're helping many people and their businesses with their debts, and they're offering a free telephone consultation to assess all options available to those who are struggling, no matter the type of amount of debt they are currently in. You can reach out to them at 724-799-8404 and also check them out at thompsonattorney.com. Guys, again, Brian Thompson, another great Pitt man. He does an incredible job with the community, what he's able to do on a day-in, day-out basis. A tremendous family man as he is. Obviously, a season ticket holder for Pitt for numerous years, a Pitt alum himself. So, again, a collectively incredible individual. Anytime you're able to go ahead and support him, but more importantly, how he's able to support you. Brian Thompson is not one of those larger attorneys where he looks at his clients as if they're numbers. He looks at you as the individual and cares about the overall result that you currently have. Also, no matter the issue or the problem, if you have an issue or a problem and you think you don't know who could handle it, call Brian. He'll be able to take care of it, or he'll put you in the right direction with the right people. That's what makes Brian so special. He makes sure that the result that you need is the one that you're going to get. So, again, call Brian Thompson at 724-799-8404, or give him a call, or see his website at thompsonattorney.com. Guys, here we go. We're back at it. We had a little bit of a bye week, the second bye week of the season for Pitt football, and guess what? That is the last bye week for Pitt football. It's looking to get healthy. Guys will get healthy back again. We'll get a number of guys back. We've obviously heard a lot of stuff going on between injuries. The injury, obviously, to Branson Taylor whenever he went out in the Cal game. Obviously, Ryan Jacoby. I think those two may be extended for a longer period of time. Luckily, the offensive line position, we've got guys that have really stepped up. Terrence Enos is a guy that really stepped up at the tackle position, but also, too, Jackson Brown. And if you know that last name, Brown, obviously it's a legacy name at the University of Pittsburgh, a guy who's been really successful so far while he's here, actually transferred in from Cal, a legacy name. He's done a tremendous job. He really got healthy this year. He got hurt during camp, was really healthy, really towards the Youngstown State games. It was really good to get him back and knock the rust off, but I expect him to start getting reps as we're probably going to need some more guys going forward. The great thing about Pitt so far, guys, you got the Syracuse Orange coming in this week. Obviously, Syracuse, they've had a good season so far, and they bring in a guy, Fran Brown, who, from everyone that I've talked to, my personal connections and two coaches on their staff down there, got to have a conversation with them about Fran Brown. They really talk about how he's really a guy just like Kirby Smart, how he runs his program. He really runs the Syracuse Orange like an SEC program. And Fran Brown really comes up here with a really good staff. Rob is in the defensive coordinator. He comes up here. He hired him from Texas A&M, was a tremendous defensive line coach down at Texas A&M, comes up here to be the D-line and defensive coordinator, a tremendous football coach. What they've been able to do day in and day out has been pretty successful. Kyle McCord, to my point, and from the tape that I've watched numerous games of Syracuse, Kyle McCord will be the best quarterback that we've faced to this point. Just not last week, they had a bye week as well. The previous week, he was 31 of 42 against NC State, was 31 of 42 for 346 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Again, Fran Brown's one of those guys who's out there. I really thanked Ryan Day for letting him go to Ohio State because he was able to get him over at Syracuse. Really, so far, a great pickup for him. Kyle McCord has done a really good job when you look at his overall stats and what he's been able to do up to this point. Again, they beat Syracuse. They beat the NC State Wolfpack 24-17 down in Raleigh, North Carolina, a couple weeks ago. Currently, the Syracuse Orange 5-1 overall, 2-1 in the conference. Obviously, they're still in the hunt for an ACC championship run. Obviously, they're looking to fight for their lives. Obviously, Pitt looking to stay undefeated. I expect this to be a great game. I expect this to be a difficult game. The Syracuse Orange are not like the Syracuse Orange of old. Even last year, obviously, we saw what last year looked like for Pitt going 3-9, and that loss to Syracuse was not a good one on the defensive side of the football, but even the offensive side of the football because of how many times it was a 3-and-out, really putting the defense in a bad position. So overall, when you're looking at this type of football, they're a good team. So in the passing attack, they've done a really good job. He's thrown for over 300 yards every single game to this point. Another guy to watch out for, Lakeem Allen. 21 carries for 91 yards. It's a 4.3 average. Had a 1 touchdown run. Had a longest run of 21 yards against NC State. Obviously, NC State 3-4 now on the season, 0-3 in the conference. Obviously, they're really down this year. Through their numerous injuries at the quarterback position. I think they're on their third quarterback at this point. Just really going through a tough time so far this year. C.J. Bailey, who's really in there so far, to look at the defensive side of the football for Syracuse. C.J. Bailey didn't do it that bad of a job. He went 17-24, 329 total yards passing, 2 touchdown passes, and 1 interception. I expect Pitt to go back to what they've been able to do, finding ways to be creative to get guys the football. You look at Syracuse's overall defense, it has not been great. I think overall, we look at Kyle McCord overall, he's 185 at 282. 2,160 yards passing, 19 total touchdown passes, and 6 interceptions towards Eli Holstein's 127 of 200. So he's thrown a lot less. And he's thrown for 1,700 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So, just overall, you're looking at it from a perspective of what this team really looks like from a different realm. Kyle McCord is that guy. They really rely on him to throw the football. They still want to try to establish the run, but they certainly lean on the shoulders of Kyle McCord. You look at Syracuse's schedule, the last 5, obviously, when you look at the last 5 games, they beat Georgia Tech on September 7th, which would have been the second game of the year. They beat Georgia Tech 31-28. They lost to Stanford 26-24. They beat Holy Cross 42-14. Really, the only really non-Power 5 group of team besides UNLV coming up here. They beat UNLV in overtime 44-41. And then they beat NC State 24-17. So, he's thrown for over 300 yards every game. But when you look at the overall score of some of these teams, 31 against Georgia Tech, 24 against Stanford, 42 against Holy Cross, 44 against UNLV and NC State, 24. Majority of the time, they've been under that 30 point mark, which is something that Pitt's been able to get over across a number of different times. Besides 2 games this year, the 2 games I guess would be what would be this previous one, Cal, and then there's one more game they didn't get over that point. Oh yeah, Cincinnati. So 2 games and 6 games, 4 games for Pitt. They've gone over the 30 point mark compared to what you look at you look at Syracuse, they didn't get over the play point for what 1, 2, and then I think 3. They had the first game of the year, then they get over 30 points as well. So overall, I mean, this is a good football team. I mean, this is no slouch. I think to this point, when you look at a well-rounded football team, I think this is by far the best football team that really Pitt's faced, and I think to say that's actually pretty close to a Cincinnati football team, where Cincinnati's really turned it on. Cincinnati right now 5-2 on the year. They've done a really good job. That's been a collectively good win for Pitt coming back from that game, a collective good win. Obviously, the West Virginia game is not looking like a good win. They're on a really downward spiral. So overall, I think when you look at Pitt's schedule, though, they have faced numerous Power 4 teams. They've taken care of business with the non-Power 4 teams, obviously with Kent State and Youngstown State. When it comes to the matchup predictor, you look at ESPN Bet. Obviously, Syracuse, they're right now between Syracuse and Pitt. Pitt is on the ESPN predictor has a 69.5, 70% chance, Pitt wins this game. For me personally, I think it's a little bit high. I think that when you look at Syracuse, they're a tough physical football team. They want to be able to control the clock for a number of different periods of time during the game. They love to have long, extended drives. They'll still rely on Kyle McCord to really try to open it up a little bit, try to get Lakeem Allen the football. Obviously, 91 rushing yards. His last game, certainly nothing to be foolish around with. But to me, when I watch Syracuse, there's times when you watch their offense, they're just like, there are times that this offense is when they're clicking, they're a hell of a football team. I mean, overall, when you look at the talent level, what he's brought in, obviously, you look at the run game, especially too, a running back that was up there, Yasin Willis. He's a true freshman. I think he's going to be good there over time. Yasin Willis, a former commit to Pitt football. Obviously, he's from the New Jersey area. When Fran Brown took that job, it was one of his first priorities was to get Yasin Willis. He was able to flip him, former 4-star running back. Obviously, luckily, we were able to get Desmond Reed. You still have Jules Goff. I think after this bye week, I would expect him to potentially get some handoffs. Potentially this week, I expect Derek Davis Jr. to be back 100%. So you have Derek Davis Jr., Rodney Hammond, Jules Goff, Daniel Carter. So you got a number of guys in that backfield back there for Pitt's offense. But this is a good football team with Syracuse. And I think overall, collectively, when you're watching this team from top to bottom, and then the amount of tape, I've watched at least 3 or 4 of their games. I think overall, I've watched 3 of their games twice. When I go back here and I watch my game tape here, I have the notes here. I've watched the UNLV game because obviously it's a different type of offense, up tempo with Brennan Merriam and what they're able to do over there. I've watched that game. I've watched the Stanford game, why they lost that game, the number of mistakes they made there. But also, too, I watched the Georgia Tech game, how they were able to win that game with the physicality they were bringing into that football game along with NC State. So I was able to watch a number of those football games a number of times just to get an info on how Syracuse plays their game. And they really live up to the line of what Syracuse really is, a tough physical football team. They're going to play a lot like a Fran Brown type of football team, SEC, tough, physical. If they can stay consistent, I think it's going to be a football game. They're a good football team overall. I'm by no means am I overlooking them. I know for a fact the Pitt football team is not overlooking them. I can tell you that right now. So that's a number of different things. To get to the questions here, obviously, guys, if you're on here now, down below to support the channel, I know I missed some of your guys' comments last time. The super chat, it's in the corner. If you give me a super chat, you donate to the program. Obviously, I will have to read it because it highlights. I won't miss it. So obviously, you donate to the program. Your first priority doesn't matter where you are in terms of the comment. I'll be able to read it and get on board with it. WRW Pitt, smash the like button and subscribe. If you have not done so, we got people over from X and on YouTube. If you're over on X, head over to YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We're growing at a rapid rate. Really, I posted a video on part of the last show for the live stream. I posted on Twitter, and it has right now 16 or 17,000 impressions. I really blew up just talking about, Pitt's atmosphere and what it needs to be going forward. So I really appreciate that. That blew up. So again, if you're in the comment section and you want yours to be first read, go ahead down to the bottom. the super chat margin. Go ahead and click the super chat and donate to the program. I'll be able to read it first. What are the keys to stopping or slowing down Syracuse's offense? Again, I think that when you look at this offense overall and you're watching Syracuse, you saw Pitt's defense really come together against a Cal team. You know, when you look at their offense overall, look at the Miami football team that's currently undefeated as well. They've given up numerous points to a number of different teams. Obviously, you know, Pitt will be facing Louisville down at Louisville, like what a Miami football team did. Obviously, they had a little bit of help there from the referees towards the end of the game. Again, but overall, you know, the number one thing is on defense, do what you did against Cal. You know, Cal was able to score 38 points against a Miami team I think is really good. We held them to 15 points. If we can collectively look like we did last week where, you know, we had 6 sacks in that football game. We sacked Cal 6 times. We were able to stop the run. We made adjustments on the fly. I think that's really big for Pitt's defense. Collectively, the defensive line, Sean Fitzsimmons coming back has been a major factor for Pitt's defensive line. I think overall, when you look at his physicality, his leadership on the defensive line, a guy who's been at Pitt for 2-3 years now, a guy that I think overall is collectively probably the best defensive tackle on the team at this point, and up there obviously with Nick James. Him and Nick James are clearly the 2 starters at the defensive tackle position for Pitt. I think those are your 2 top guys. Francis Breu really at number 3, and Nakai Johnson at number 4. Those are really your top 4 defensive tackles up to this point. I think collectively, number 1, stop the run. You can stop the run, make them one-dimensional, have them drop back to where we can get them down 3rd and long. You've seen Pitt collectively how well they've done in 3rd and long. This year, they've had a couple spurts, obviously, in a number of these games where a couple passes on those 3rd and longs, they were able to get it. But collectively, you saw this last game. It was 3rd and long. Pitt got after it. And Pitt was able to get 6 sacks in this game. The overall amount of pressure. And from the players that have reached out to me and the parents that have reached out to me, guys, the crowd truly means something. Home field advantage truly means something, especially at Acrisure Stadium, the Aurora, what it has. Obviously, Pitt fans being loud. I expect Pitt fans to show up. It's a Thursday night primetime game. I'll be walking over from my office. I'll be walking around, meeting a lot of you again. It'll be a lot of fun to meet you guys. But overall, guys, I mean, that's collectively comes down to the defensive side of the football. Make them one-dimensional, stop the run, do it a Pat Narduzzi defense is supposed to do. Stop the run, and then when you get Kyle McCord to drop back the pass, a guy who's thrown over 300 yards every game so far, maybe not let the world on fire with points every single game, but he's thrown for over 300 yards, which is pretty dangerous. Get pressure on him. And I know Pitt, you know, the way Pitt plays defense, man, especially this year, they're certainly going to blitz. So you have to watch, when you're blitzing at that high of a rate, you got to watch for the screen passes, obviously the quick out routes, obviously throwing the ball out to the flat, getting a wide receiver into space one-on-one with Pitt's DBs. Watch them make plays. That's going to be another factor. Again, with the linebackers playing downhill, safety's up over top, especially too when you're in a quarters defense. Safety's making the correct adjustments from back to front. That's really how Pitt's defense really works. The safety position is so important. And then Brandon George in the middle, man. Keeping guys on terms of the defensive line, keeping them in place to what they need to do to be successful. That's really what they need to do on offense. I mean, make them one-dimensional and create pressure on the quarterback and create Kyle McCord to really make mistakes. Allow him to make mistakes, but the way you do that is creating pressure. If he sits back there all day, then it's going to be a long day for Pitt, I think, and he's going to be able to throw the football around. But I expect Pitt to get after it. They're certainly not overlooking this game from people that I've talked to. They remember the outcome of last year. They took that personally. But also, too, they understand the factor that Syracuse is a good football team. The ACC has a number of good football teams this year, 5-6 football teams that you look at and you say, damn, there's some damn good football being played right now. So they're certainly not overlooking them. And thanks, JJ. I'm going to the game Thursday and going to work on Friday. Wish me luck. I appreciate that, man. Same here, brother. I'm going to the game Thursday night. I will be there Friday. Obviously, it'll certainly be a lot of fun. Again, guys, if I miss your comment or something, please use the super chat button. I'll be able to see the comment, and I'll be able to highlight it, and then overall, I'll be able to read it. You talked me into it. I appreciate that. I know. I'll see you there, man. I'm going, man. There's no reason for us to miss. JJ, 10-2. I think overall at this point, I think there's a very good chance that they go 10-2. Obviously, you know, this is really these last 6 games, man. This is where we find out what Pitt has. What type of football team? First off, number one, how does Pitt handle success? I think they've done a good job. They found ways to win. They haven't come out of the gates as a barn burner in a number of these football games, keeping it close, having to come from behind. I want to see this football game after a bye week. You're fresh. Get out there and really play your ass off. Get after the game pretty quickly. Don't waste time. Get after it. You want to see collectively what this football team does in terms of how they're able to make plays, how they're able to make adjustments. Get out there, get points on the board, even on that first drive, even if it's a field goal. Get points on the board in your first drive. That's what you really want to see. And then if the defense gets on the field first, not looking for a 3-and-out, but get off the field. Maybe if they get a first down right after that, get off the field. Really create some momentum from there. But when you look at these last 6 games, man, you've got Clemson, you've got Louisville, you've got SMU, you've got Boston College, and then you've got Virginia. And then there's one more team in there that I'm forgetting about. Who am I forgetting about in there? There's one more team. Syracuse, obviously, yeah. So these last 6 games, we're going to find out what type of football team we have. How do they handle success? They're 6-0. Everyone's hyping them up, obviously. They're 19th overall in the country. They moved up one spot by not playing this week. That's a big one. But overall, how do they handle success? What does it look like after a bye week? How fast do they come out of the gates, and where do they make the corrections from last week, especially offensively? Does Eli Holstein bounce back? I expect him to bounce back. I know for a fact, I've been told from numerous people, he was in the building throughout the entire week, watching film, making the corrections, watching film on Syracuse, how they'll potentially play him, what they currently playing right now. And that's just a true leader on how Eli Holstein prepares. He's done a hell of a job this year, so I expect him to bounce back. I think overall, though, you look at these last games, guys, this is probably the hardest portion of the schedule. I mean, you've got numerous people. I mean, Syracuse is a tough football team. Syracuse got 1 loss. SMU has 1 loss. Clemson has 1 loss. Louisville has 2 losses. Virginia has 2 losses. And Boston College has, I think, potentially 2 or 3 losses now. That's kind of where I'm at this point. So, I mean, overall, it's what you're currently going to see. So I think overall 10-2 is certainly not out of the arena. I think overall, if I had to guess, 10-2 and 2 losses, which is kind of funny. At the beginning of the year, I had this football team going 8-4, and then right during fall camp, I had them going 9-3. Those are very, very potentially reachable. Overall, you look at the schedule that's currently here. But 10-2, I think if you had 2 losses, probably the Clemson team. Clemson's a hell of a football team. We're going to need the entire place rocking for that game. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're a damn good football team. They figured it out on offense. They're playing a high level of football on defense. That's going to be a damn good football team coming up here in November, and I expect Pitt fans to show up for that. And then obviously, too, Louisville. Louisville's a good football team. It's down there at Louisville. They suffered another loss. I don't know what their fans are going to look like down there. They've got, I think, 3 losses now, 2 or 3 losses, so we'll see what that looks like. But they're good football teams. I mean, they are some damn good football teams on this schedule. Virginia continues to play football at a high level, for what they've looked like in previous years. They're no longer an easy out. ACC football is not easy. It's a barn burner at this point. You're going to find out which teams had the most physicality and how the hell they play. I'm going to try to get all these comments here. JJ, do you think Pitt has a good chance of making the playoffs? As we sit here today, yeah, they're 6-0. You win your conference, you have an automatic bid in the college football playoff. And I think for Pitt, if they have 1, I think maybe 2 losses might be too many. But if they have 1 loss, I don't see how they don't get in there, especially with the open bid, with the free bid, obviously the at-large bid. They are right now, the potential for them to make the playoffs is extremely high. They're undefeated. They're undefeated in conference play. They're certainly up there. If they win the conference, they're in the playoff automatically. So right now, hell yeah. I mean, there's a very good chance they make the playoffs. But what it comes down to is how well do they adjust to the level of success that they're having. It's a young football team. They continue to learn week in and week out. They have a young offensive coordinator. Cade Bell continues to learn week in and week out. He continues to make fabulous adjustments as he goes through. I think the Cal game was probably the first game where you looked at the offense collectively and said, hey, that was just a really bad football game on offense. Besides that, 6 games. So he's had 5 good games and 1 bad game. I'll take that 10 times out of 10. I'm good with that. And I think Cade Bell, the way that he prepares and the way he coaches, you can bet your ass he was in that film room figuring out what the hell was wrong, execution purposes, what they need to do better going forward. I think that's really what it comes down to. But I mean, overall, it depends on how this team does with affecting how they handle success, but also too, these home games are so critical on national television. The perception of what's there. Pitt fans, I cannot stress enough the conversation. I don't care who gets mad and who doesn't. I actually just don't. I'm so blessed to not give a shit. Pitt fans need to show up. It's that simple. And I'm not asking for 70,000. I understand that's a little egregious, especially for a Thursday night. But there is absolutely zero reason. And I know the Panther Pit's going to show up. By the way, I had some conversations with them. I love the Panther Pit. The Panther Pit, I cannot tell you how well of a job that they've done to the past really 4 years. I mean, they continually show up. Last week, even with the fall break, the holiday, for how many people were there, I expect overall 10 to 11,000 students to be there. There's absolutely zero reason for the general public not to be there. But overall, 50 to 60,000 people should be there regardless, no matter what. I mean, hell, be honest. West Virginia didn't sell out again, obviously, for how great their fan base is supposed to be. But they had 50,000 there for a 3-3 football team. And again, I understand it's Morgantown. There's nothing going on. I mean, holy shit. I mean, there's the best thing you can do is go to a football game. But overall, I expect Pitt fans to show up. It's time. And I said it, and the video I posted had over 17. It's got, now I looked at it over on Twitter. Now, if I look at it now, I think it's over 18,000 impressions. If I look here, if you need me to leave me, I ever wanted. Let me see here. Yeah, it's got 18,000 impressions right now. Wow, 215 likes, man. Thank you guys for that. Holy hell. I'm not that likable. Jeez. But I'm telling you right now, people have to show up. It's that simple. I mean, I'm literally walking over from my office downtown. It's a Thursday night, man. What game's at 7:30? You're out of there by 10:30, 11. Who cares? Most nights, by the time I'm done filming this stuff or doing podcasts here, I don't go to bed till about 1 a.m. anyway. So what does it matter? But at the end of the day, it's important for us to be there and show on a national perception that people are supporting this football team. And for where college football is going, we need support. It's that simple. So I expect 50 to 60,000 there. No questions asked. Anything less than that is a disappointment. Call it what it is. And again, people know me as a positive Pitt guy, but guess what? I'm a straight shooter. If it's below that, it's bullshit. Just being honest. Anything on Anthony Johnson's return would help defensive line depth. Will, from my understanding to this point, he is out for the year. I know Pat Narduzzi has not talked about that, but from people that are just around the program, from what I've talked to and what I've heard, is that he's out for the entire year. Which, by the way, to this point, I'm hoping that there is, and I would imagine there's a conversation about potentially a medical red shirt to where he can come back next year. Because I think he's a tremendous football player. I think he can be really good for us. And I think this will be a good learning year for him. And then next year he comes out ready to go again. So I'm hoping he gets that medical red shirt because we could use him next year. Q struggled against a bad NC State team. I agree, Adam. That was a major factor in watching them and watching the tape on that. NC State's really down this year. So it'll be crazy to watch them overall. But it comes down to, again, Syracuse won 24-17. It's not like they scored 30 points or whatever. So NC State did what they needed to do at home. Pitt needs to take this game seriously, like I know they are, and come out fast. Play physical. Play Pitt football. Fast, physical, and smart football. Get after it. It's that simple. No lollygagging around. You're out there, do the preparation, what you need to do. You've got Monday, Tuesday, walk through Wednesday, and then get the hell after it on Thursday. It's that simple. Q's a solid team, but I think if both teams play their A game, we win decisively. I think that's up there too. If we play our A game, what we're supposed to do, I would agree with that. What is your prediction for attendance this Thursday? Jake, I'm going to be honest with you. I do not know. With it being Sunday, I'll probably have more of a prediction on like Tuesday or Wednesday. At the end of the day, though, you've got to show up. Brandon George had a rough final few minutes against Cal. He couldn't cover that 87 tight end. Well, I disagree. There's a lot of there's a lot of breakdowns on coverage. I can tell you this. for a tight end, that's not his responsibility to guard the tight end. I can assure you that right now. That is not his job. So I will go back. I watched the tape there. I think overall there's miscommunication on the back end. So, for instance, especially the star position, that's a star position's time to cover, especially too from the outside going in. If it's a 1-2-3 set, depending upon what the set looks like, a lot of times if it's a 1-2 set, the safety over top has to cover 87. If it's a 3 set, the star position has to cover 87. But the middle linebacker would never be covering a guy. I can promise you that. Have a score prediction or a bold prediction. I think I'm going to have, I think right now with me, I'm going to watch a little more tape. It's Sunday. I'm going to put out a preview tape, obviously on Syracuse, probably on Tuesday, I think. I'll post that. I'll probably have more of a score prediction there. But right now, I think I still have Pitt winning. I think Pitt bounces back from what their offense looked like last week. I think their defense continues to step up, a lot more confidence. And again, this is a young defensive side of the football, and they just continually get better every single week. And you just saw so much stuff happen. Jimmy Scott had a tremendous breakout game at defensive end. Sean Fitzsimmons has been playing a great brand of football. Nick James was back. That was great to watch him play. Francis Breu continues to show his dominant style of football, physicality, and a lot more. He's showing more of that finesse to get around guys, not just be a guy who's just all full of power. I think overall it just continues to get better and better. But I'll probably have more of a prediction as we go on through the rest of the week. Eli over under 250 passing yards. I'm going over 250 from what I've seen. Like, I mean, CJ Bailey against, Syracuse, they rushed, CJ Bailey was their top rusher. They couldn't run the football against Syracuse, but they passed. I mean, he's our third quarterback. He's 17 to 24 for 329 yards. I would think Eli's going to go over 300 yards. And you could probably bet. And one of the things that really needs to happen this week on offense, the run game needs to be more consistent. The offensive line needs to get a better push. We need to start, when we get into the run game, there's too many times to where the offensive line is getting at a stalemate or getting pushed back. There's a number of times though during the game against Cal where we got good push and you saw those good runs of 4 or 5 yards. We need to get a consistent run game going because you saw in the Cal game where, Justin Wilcox, the head football coach at Cal, is a defensive guy. He's really a good defensive football coach. Really played a number of different sets, especially into a quarters defense. A lot like what Pitt was able to run. But he had really two deep safeties for a lot of the time. You saw Eli trying to force stuff down the football field where, they had guys back there and he threw in the double coverage a couple of times, was able to get an interception. I would expect Syracuse, because Fran Brown's a defensive guy. It's another defensive head coach. They're going to try to replicate a lot of what that currently happened. Having more guys deep, they're basically going to try, if I had to bet, me personally, they're going to try to do as much as they can in terms of putting their defensive back, especially their safeties, 2 deep safeties back the entire game, not putting them in the box, and telling Pitt, hey, you might get these throws here and there and creating options where you're able to get guys open, but they're going to try to have Pitt run the football and beat them that way. So Pitt's got to be able to run the football a lot better than what it has. And then if you're able to run the football, when I always tell people making one team one-dimensional because it's a lot harder to be successful on offense if you're one-dimensional. Well, if you're able to run the football, they have to eventually, what happens is they have to bring those 2 safeties up top. They have to bring them down in the box. If they're down in the box, your outside sets, your receivers can now start to make those, for instance, down the seams, in posts. And then especially Gavin Bartholomew, you're able to run him down the seam. If they're playing back in the 2 safety sets over the top and you're not running the football, you can't run the football, they're not going to come down in the box. The whole point is for what Pitt needs to do is run the football to bring those guys down, have them more level set to where they're more close to the line of scrimmage, and then we can have a conversation about going deep again. And then you're 2-dimensional. Then they're freaking out because they can't figure out what the hell Pitt's going to run. But if you're 1-dimensional where you're just throwing the ball, if I'm facing Pitt, I'm over the top. I'm standing right over the top and making them run the football to beat me. It's that simple. I want to see what Desmond Reed, Rodney Hammond, and Derek Davis Jr. can do to beat me. They got to beat me. I'm not going to let Eli Holstein beat me. It's that simple. And especially, you'll probably see Cade Bell do a lot of initiatives to where they're running slant routes. They're running, especially, bubble routes, screen passes. Especially, they'll spread them out a lot like what Tennessee does. Spread them out to the sideline, get the ball out to the sideline, creating one-on-one mismatches, one-on-one opportunities for the wide receiver to make a play. and then creating those curl routes. I mean, they're probably going to see a lot of different stuff to really open that other stuff up as well. But Pitt's got to run the football. Hopefully, we can get into the Clemson's game 9-1 at worst. I agree. That'd be great. I pray for a Pitt versus PSU in a playoff game. Steven, that would be so much fun. The ratings for that game would be absolutely incredible. I mean, that is like, that would be, I mean, a rivalry game in the playoff. That's really what it's meant for, man. I mean, just some great football. That would be incredible. Yeah, team, man, I disagree. I think that would be a really bad crowd, actually. No, tarps would be a horrible idea. Just call it what it is. Don't use tarps, especially up top, to where, especially the open side of the end zone, like half of that is for the students as well. The students will certainly show up, so I certainly wouldn't. And at the end of the day, it's just a bad look overall. I mean, from what I've been told again from Pitt, I've been saying it all along. I mean, you're going to deal with this for probably probably 3 or 4 more years, and then the Pitt will have their own place. So I wouldn't. Derek, to your point, tarping is an absolutely terrible idea. I agree. JJ, I have a few questions for Pitt for Syracuse. Can Pitt's D-line get a consistent pressure and get home for Syracuse? Will Narduzzi and Bates switch up the coverage? Can't keep playing man versus McCord. Jason, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually just truly disagree. I mean, Pitt's defense is fully focused on quarters defense. At times, they'll play zone defense depending upon who they're facing. But, I mean, overall, I mean, they've really kept – I mean, name a team that they've faced so far that they didn't really hold the passing game in check this year. I mean, overall, Kent State, they held them in check. West Virginia, Garrett Green couldn't do anything against the pass against Pitt. They held him in check. Last week, Fernando Mendez, they kept him in check. Who else was there? Youngstown State's quarterback. He didn't do nothing. They kept him in check. Cincinnati, that besides the first half, they came out in the second half, ran the same exact stuff, and they kept them in check. I wouldn't change a thing, man. And to your point about, are they going to get home to what Syracuse? If you watch the film, I don't see why they can't. And again, I'm not. I understand the questions about what people are asking about. Like are they going to be able to create pressure? They've created pressure all year, guys. I mean, let's be honest. Like, the only problem with their issues is just not getting home, missing, not coming in under control and making the tackle. That would be my concern. Is this team gonna do what it did last? Well, I guess not last week, but 2 weeks ago, where against Cal, it was really under. It was able to really show a number of different aspects where it showed up in the box. It created pressure. It had 6 sacks. I mean, look at Cal overall. I mean, they in the past couple of games, even against Miami, they didn't have 6 sacks. You look at overall when they faced NC State, they didn't have 6 sacks. I think this defense has gotten a lot more energy, but more importantly, more experience by playing. It's a very young defense. The defensive line is extremely young, but you're watching it collectively get better and better and better. Jimmy Scott had a breakout game. I mean, he played a hell of a football game. He had 3 or 4 sacks. I think it was 3 sacks. 3 of the 7 sacks were for Jimmy Scott. And then you saw, Rasheem Biles will be back this week. He even played last week. Braden Lovelace, had a tremendous football game. He had a number of sacks in that football game. Sincere Edwards has gotten better as the week's gone on. It's a young group. But I think what we saw last week, if they can replicate that, I see why not. I don't see why they can't continue to create that pressure. And they've gotten pressure really I would say, really maybe against Cincinnati, where you saw early on in the game, they didn't get a lot of pressure. Cincinnati, West Virginia in the first half, they didn't get a lot of pressure, but in the second half, they certainly did. But against Cal, they had a consistent, full-blown game where they made the stops. I mean, they only allowed 15 points against a Cal team that put up 37. Was it 37 points against Miami's defense? If they can play like they did last week, then they should be fine. My man, Coach Roybal, obviously, if you guys don't know, he's with Jason Watkins on the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. He's the best Pitt kicking ass and taking names. Great job. Appreciate that, Coach. Miss you, my guy. Love you. He's the best. Obviously, go follow them at the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. They're the best. Him and Jason Watkins are the best. But overall, again, guys, I'm trying to go through all the comments. Down below, there's a super chat. If you hit the super chat button, I'll be able to see it right away, and it highlights it. I'll be able to put it on the screen, and then we'll go from there. Overall, guys, again, this team, that's number one. I think that when you look at this overall, this defense, collectively, that was the first full game on defense besides the first drive. I thought the first drive for Pitt against Syracuse was absolutely just horrendous. I mean, it was soft. It was weak. It looked pathetic. I mean, they went right down the football field. I was like, I mean, you saw my guys tweet. I was like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, that was probably the easiest touchdown Pitt's given up all year. And then immediately, it's like almost like they went to the sideline, and Pat Narduzzi just said, hey, that is not a Pitt defense. And just the tide changed after that. I mean, besides the first drive of the game, for the next 3.5 quarters, they scored only 8 points. They scored 8 points the rest of the game. Or I guess 9 points. 9 points because they only had 6 off that touchdown. So, I mean, overall, guys, I mean, that's a tremendous, I guess, 10 points then. No, 9 points. You're right. 9 points. Overall, it's a tremendous, I mean, you look at that football team in terms of 3.5 quarters of how well it played on defense and the guys that stepped up. I mean, that was the Narduzzi defense that we always talk about. And I saw somebody bring up, the comment on, will Pat Narduzzi's defense this year's in top 20. Guys, it's so hard to be top 20 in the country in defense when your defense is on the field so much. If Pitt scores in 30 seconds, their defense is going back out there. They're playing a lot more snaps for previous years where you saw this team was, I mean, ridiculously good on defense. They're playing a lot more snaps. I mean, they're playing a lot more snaps overall. I mean, collectively, most years they're probably playing like 45 to 53 snaps a game. They're playing like 76 to 80 snaps a game. And that's almost like 30 snaps more a game. It's a lot. It's hard to keep the yards under there, man. I mean, hell, you can't have 3 and out every single time. I mean, eventually they figure out some stuff to move the football. Hell, even Georgia couldn't do that. So that's, I mean, overall, I expect the defense to really continue to play at a high level like it has. I expect the offense to make its adjustments, to understand last week is not the Pitt offense that we've seen the previous 5 weeks. I know K. Bell was pissed off about it. He understood that's not what his offense is supposed to look like. Eli Holstein, being the true professional and leader that he is, understood, hey, that's on me. Took the blame for it, never takes any credit for it. Took the blame for it and said, hey, it's on me. I played like a freshman today. I expect him to come out balls of fury and just playing lights out. I really do. I think he's a different style of guy. I love his John Wick mentality. It's the Baba Yaga. I love it. I think he's just a different type of guy. And if you look at Alabama right now, I bet Alabama wish they had. I bet Alabama wish they had Eli Holstein right now because Jalen Milroe did not look good last week. Or I'm sorry, this week against Tennessee, they lost to Tennessee. And also too, it's crazy to me too. If you do the research, it's just like Pitt fans talking about a lot of stuff in terms of the football team. But even look at, for instance, Alan Green, the new athletic director for Pitt. Go look at the history of the amount of money he's fundraised through NIL and then the actual fundraising for the university, what he was able to do at Buffalo and what he was able to do at Auburn. I mean, there's one guy on PFF, PPF, as they call it, Pitt Panther Fanatics on Facebook, which is, there's just a lot of negative people in there for some reason. Calling it a bad hire, overall he didn't do well. It's like guys, just do some research. That's why I'm glad people come on, to listen to the show and just hear their overall thoughts, and just hear what they want to talk about. But all right, let me see here. There's no super chats yet, so that's good. Bell needs to create more mismatches, wide receivers on the linebacker and Reed on their linebacker. I mean, to be honest with you, he's done a great job putting Reed on linebackers. That's why we've seen a number of different plays. I think just the wide receivers need to get more space. I think that's number one. But also, too, I just think they ran into a bunch of different coverages last week that we haven't seen before. And again, it's a younger group, especially up front, and especially Eli Holstein just hasn't seen it. I expect that to change this week. And again, Gavin Bartholomew, I thought, had a really good football game. I expect him to start really getting more into the offense because now people are going to start looking off at him. It's almost like in these games, you hear every coach talk about Gavin Bartholomew, number one. I mean, they're looking at him. But now with Desmond Reed getting the football, Kanate Mumfield, Kenny Johnson, Raphael Poppy Williams, they got to start looking elsewhere. And that's why you're starting to see more of Gavin Bartholomew starting to go downfield and how they use him. So it's going to be a lot more fun. I was thinking about doing this, and I know some people have talked about this and asked me about this. Let me know in the group. Let me know in the chat, guys. I'm potentially thinking about doing like a call-in show to where I put the actual the StreamYard clip into the group chat where you guys click on it. You guys can join the show, call in. You have your camera on. You'll have to have your camera on and just talk about your questions, your overall questions on the program, your thoughts on Pitt football, what's coming up. Let me know if you ever guys would like that down the road. I'm thinking about doing that just for the sake of just hearing more of your guys' thoughts. Looking here, I had a couple notes, making sure I hit everything here. Oh yeah, just a couple more thoughts on Allen Green. Allen Green again, guys. I mean, from what I've been told too, Allen Green is expected to start November 1st. He'll be working between here and Tennessee. He'll be finishing up a couple tasks here and there. Obviously, he has to go to finish up a majority of his tasks down at Tennessee, but he'll be working back and forth. I expect him to be up here full time at like November 15th, but he'll start full time for Pitt really November 1st. First super chat ever, John Marzullo. Thank you so much. Again, if you do a super chat like this, we'll put it up on the screen and talk about it in depth. John, a great comment here. And John, let me tell you something. I completely agree. Glad to be playing meaningful games again. Hail to Pitt. And I think that's a great comment by John here. It's so good to be in the middle of October, coming towards the end of October here, and we're playing meaningful football again like we were in 21 and 22. Last year, I think, was just an anomaly of just what happened with Pitt football, which is bad quarterback play, bad schematically, what Pitt looked like. I think overall, when you look at this football team, it's just night and day. But I also think, too, when you look at Pitt, let's be honest, they've gotten rid of a lot of the so-called cancers in the locker room. I think, Gavin Bartholomew really had a good comment on one of his post-game pressers, just saying, look, the guys collectively here are all bought into the same thing. It's not about one guy or the other. It's not about just one guy. I think overall people understand that the whole team is about the team. It's not about one individual. And, Gavin Bartholomew, no matter what anybody says, he's going to go to the National Football League. I've been told by that from a number of different scouts that I know personally that I've talked to. Obviously he hasn't gotten a lot of looks overall like towards the middle. He's been guarded pretty heavily when you watch the tape. It's almost like people were just game planning for him right away. But overall, when you look at this team from a perspective of what it was last year to what it is this year, it's a lot like Indiana. Kurt Cignetti, which is pretty funny. Kurt Cignetti is the complete opposite from Frank Cignetti. Kurt Cignetti's offense is just lighting it up in Indiana. He really took care of business against Nebraska. Nebraska continues to struggle in what it's done. I think overall, when you look at their football team, Indiana really turns it around very quickly. But then again, they talked about a sellout recently, and it just goes to the point of, they sold out the game as a sellout with 52,000 fans there. Pitt's got a 70,000 seat stadium. In a perfect world, and I think when it's finally all said and done, when Pitt Stadium comes out, it's going to be, it'll be 44 to 48,000 in that range, which is perfect for Pitt. And it matches more of what Pitt really does. And when it comes to meaningful football games, it's good overall to show the natural ability of a collective fan base showing up. A lot like a TCU that has 45,000. Their stadium is actually very nice too, by the way. Stanford that has 50,000 seats overall. I think that's just really what Pitt fits into. And I was in a conversation today. I had a guy, didn't even follow me on Twitter, reach out to me and say, well, the stadium's too big, all this stuff. Like they only had about 45,000 for the Clemson game. I was like, that is such BS. I was there, and of course it was a Penn State fan. He said he was a Pitt fan, but I looked through his entire feed. He's a Penn State fan. But it just goes to show, though, when you have a stadium like that and you fill it up, you're able to overall charge more. That helps the program more. Also, too, I expect Alan Green to bring that 10% credit towards season tickets onto the realm of what NIL is, being able to help out and support NIL. So overall, just when you collectively win, there's a lot more that can happen for you. But I just think right now, to the Pitt fans, man, you got to show up. There's just no reason to at this point. So, John, I really appreciate the super chat. I really appreciate it. You're the first super chat ever on Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. So we'll be putting your name up more often. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you supporting the show, and it means a lot. So again, I appreciate everyone that was able to do that, and especially too with super chats as well. Lord knows the fan won't have a post-game call-in show. LOL. Yeah, I know. That's another thing too. I may start to do a call-in show and maybe do an after, like a post-game show. Depending upon how many fans like it, obviously, depending upon how many fans actually show up, that'll be a number one thing to think about just overall for the content purposes of what you guys like. But Pitt is playing meaningful football right now. There's zero reason for people not to show up. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this football team moving forward. It's gonna be a lot of fun to see what this team looks like overall. In terms of the ACC, guys, when you look at the ACC from top to bottom, I mean it's a league of its own right now, man. I think overall, if I look here at the standings here, at the top of the standings overall, 5-0 in the conference because they've played the most conference games, so they're number one at this point. 6-1 overall, 5-0 in the conference. Clemson. Miami is 3-0 in the conference, 7-0 overall. I expect them to probably have a bye week here coming pretty soon. SMU 3-0, 6-1 in the conference. Pitt 2-0, 6-0, 2-0 in the conference, 6-0 overall. Duke 2-1, 6-1 overall. Syracuse 2-1, 5-1 overall. Virginia Tech 4-3 overall, but 2-1 in the conference, so they're still in the hunt. Georgia Tech has 2 losses, 3-2 in the conference, 5-3 overall. Louisville. They've now gone 2-2 in the conference. They're 4-3 overall. Virginia 2-2, 4-3. Boston College, for how fast they turned up, we're seeing more of their injuries really pop up. They're now 1-2 in the conference, 4-3 overall after their loss to Virginia. Wake Forest 1-2, 3-4 overall. Then you really get to the bottom here. NC State having a bad year, 4-4 overall, 1-3 in the conference. Stanford 1-3, 2-5 overall. Florida State is just absolutely just ass at this point. Florida State 1-5 in the conference, 1-6 overall. North Carolina 0-3 in the conference, 3-4 overall, and then Cal 0-4. And let me tell you something, Cal's now 3-4. They've lost their last 4 games in the ACC by a total of 9 points. That is tough. And the amount of field goals, even against Pitt, the amount of missed field goals overall have been just crazy to think about. I mean, I feel really bad overall. It's crazy. From Twitter, Icy Light Mango, better at least have 50,000 Thursday, 6-0 versus a 5-1 team. I said the same thing, man. That's kind of what my thing is. It's gotta be there. Also, please sign up for Alliance 412. No more excuses, everyone. Agree 100%. Obviously, we now officially, between Twitter and YouTube, we've now got 531 people in the chat so far. If you're over on X, head over to YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe. It certainly helps out. Obviously, too, if you're looking for your comment to pop up a lot like John's here, hit the super chat button, make a donation to the program, and we'll get you up on here. And no matter where you are in terms of the line of comments, I'll be able to see it faster because a lot more comments come in during this show. A lot more now. There's a lot more to make sure I see these comments, so it certainly helps out. But overall, guys, I mean, in terms of the ACC, Pitt's playing a great brand of football right now, 2-0. But we're really going to find out what this football team looks like right now going forward. I think overall, this is going to be the toughest stretch. I think they were battle tested with Cincinnati. They were battle tested with Cal. Even battle tested with West Virginia for how they're playing. It's the backyard brawl. I think West Virginia plays a certain brand of football in the backyard brawl compared to what they've been playing recently. Getting embarrassed on national television this week is not what their plan looks like. They're in a tough spot. Neil Brown's overall, his buyout's over $10 million. I expect Neil Brown, unless he loses out, I expect Neil Brown to be back next year. So we'll be facing Neil Brown in West Virginia next year in Morgantown. Garrett Green had himself a horrible game. I mean, we were at literally over a friend's house having a celebration for a couple, and I can tell you, man, they had the game on just overall. A couple WVU fans in there, and they just look bad. I mean, that's a declining football team right now, and just a lack of coaching. I put out a tweet last night. Some WVU fans got mad, but just calling it the way it is. Their offense is anemic. I hate to say it, their offense is a lot like Frank Signetti. They need, and a lot like the Steelers, they need 4 or 5 minutes to go down the football field. 4 or 5 minutes to go down the football field to score. They're not explosive. Their pass game is anemic. A lot like what, even I think maybe even worse than Frank Signetti's. Garrett Green, where WVU fans were talking about how he was a Heisman candidate. By no stretch of the imagination was he ever a Heisman candidate. We all called that from the beginning. There were a number of different podcasts that reached out to me and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "He's not. I mean, he's a guy who's going to throw for 50% completion percentage. I think he's up from like 51% last year to 52.5%, 53% this year. He's thrown as many touchdown passes as interceptions. I think he's thrown like 7 or 8 interceptions, 7 or 8 touchdown passes. He's having a bad game. Nico Markio comes in. I give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because obviously he comes in after sitting on the bench for 2 quarters. But, I mean, Neil Brown, he's got to learn from his mistakes, and he can't make the same mistake that Pat Narduzzi made last year. He's got to make a quarterback change. I think Garrett Green just looks horrendous. The defense is just continually confused. I mean, when you look at their film, just to watch the all-22, and on the back end, especially their linebackers and their defensive backs, the amount of miscommunication is just staggering. I mean, the amount of guys are just confused. Some guys are playing zone. Some guys are playing man. When they're in quarters defense, like what Pitt plays, they're so confused. They have no idea what the hell's going on. They're pushing off guys to where they think they're not following a guy, but in quarters defense, you're one-on-one. You have to stick with that guy. Guys are running free down the football field. You saw, I don't know if anybody watched the game, a couple of snippets, especially 2 in the highlights, and they had guys running free down the football field. It's a mess there, man. I would think that Neil Brown will survive, and I think their defensive coordinator, Jordan Leslie, will get fired. So we'll see what that looks like. What about the UCF expandable stadium idea for Pitt? That makes sense, yeah. I mean, I would think probably Pitt would do that. Their stadium at UCF has 50,000 seats, potentially up to 55 right now. I think that's a potential. But their job right now is to just continue to build the fan base more and more. And I think how you do that is just getting out of the way of the national spotlight of what it is. People look at the stands and just see open seats. And I think it's a lot of times it's not fair because sometimes Pitt will average between 50 and 55. Like during 2021, we averaged 55,000 fans. That's not bad. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not going to have 70,000 fans there. I'm not claiming, I'm not calling for 70,000 people to show up to the game. That's just not going to happen. We don't have a fan base like that. A lot of people don't have a fan base like that. Hell, West Virginia don't have a fan base like that. Not everyone's going to be Georgia. Not everyone's going to be, Michigan or Nebraska, where there's in the middle of nowhere and they're able to have fans. Or like, Georgia's different. They're just a really good football team, so people show up. But I'm not certainly calling for that. But there's no reason why we shouldn't have 50 to 55,000 to even 60,000 fans there, in the 50 to 60,000 range. Just zero. It's a 6-0 football team competing for a college football playoff spot. I mean, holy shit. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, Indiana had 52,000 people at their game this week, and they're 6-0 for the first time since like 1945 or some shit. I mean, that's just people showing up. It's going to be interesting to see who really shows up and who really supports this program, but also too supporting Alliance 412. I know they're close. They're close to 1,000 members. I know they want to get over that hump of 1,000 members. People need to continue to show up and continue to do it. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When all the season ticket holders get on board and donate at least, that $19.75 a month, Pitt would generate over $6 million in NIL revenue. That's not even including the mega donors that we have that pitch in millions of dollars towards the NIL collective. And Chris Bickle's really done it on his own to this point, so shout out to him. So overall, I mean, and shout out to Chris Bickle, man, for what he's done. I think he's done a hell of a job in terms of doing things on his own, which is pretty impressive. So I'm excited for that. We'll continue to watch that and monitor that. Obviously, again, Alan Green, the new AD, the new athletic director for Pitt. He's the from former Tennessee deputy athletic director and chief operating officer at Tennessee. I'm looking to see if I actually have my tweet from here. Let's see if I have it. Let me see here if I can show it on my Twitter account. Let's see here. Trying to see where this is at. It's a great article, by the way, by Chris Carter. Carter Critiques. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, here it is. Okay. I'm actually going to share my screen with you guys right now because I think this is a great topic and something that looks really good overall for Pitt. Again, guys, if you're just joining the show, if you want to get your chat on the screen, just hit the super chat button down below. Make a small donation to the program. We'll get your question up there because I see it. Obviously, we get more comments coming in. I can't see everybody's, so hit the super chat button, and I'll be able to get up on the screen. Let's share my screen here. Share screen. Let's see here. Bum. Here we go. So here, I think you guys can see that now. So here at Buffalo, and again, this is a great article by Chris Carter. If you've not seen it, it was on October 19th. I would certainly go out there and go watch that. It's an or I should go read that. It's an incredible article by him. I thought he did a great job, but very good comment here. It's in there. At Buffalo, Green oversaw an increase, and this is at Buffalo, guys. I mean, I don't know if anybody's been to Buffalo's campus, but let me tell you something. I've been up there. It's in the middle. I mean, it's outside the city of Buffalo. I mean, if you can imagine Buffalo, there's nothing really going on up there. It's in the middle of nowhere. At Buffalo, Green oversaw an increase of athletic revenue from 31.2 million in 2014 to 40.8 million when he left for Auburn in 2018. While Buffalo's media rights revenue from being in the MAC only rose from 3.6 million in 2014 to 3.8 in 2018. The university's donors' contributions rose by 182%. From 1.05 million in 2014 to 1.92 million in 2018. I mean, that's absolutely remarkable. And again, credited, obviously Carter Critiques did a tremendous job there. He does great work. But I mean, that is a great comment in there that he was able to really do a really good bunch of research. Alan Green, I think, is just overall going to be a great addition to Pitt. I think overall he does a really great job of understanding how to raise money, but overall collectively bring the fan base in. I think that's number one, bringing the fan base in to be a major factor in what Pitt does in terms of where they need to go, and that's raising money. Raising money to this point. That's what it comes down to. Some talking recently about Pitt athletics being in the red. Is it as bad as rumors suggest? Are we in the danger of losing any varsity sports down the road? I appreciate you having the best information. Gary, I appreciate it. Like any other athletic department, Pitt's in the red. And obviously they're in the red majority because of Victory Heights. I mean, it's a $240 million project. You're going to be in the red. That's just what happens. Pitt's done a great job of spending money. I said on my previous podcast, Pat Narduzzi is the fourth highest paid head coach in the ACC. Dabo Sweeney makes $11.3 million. Mike Norvell, who's done a horrible job this year, Mike Norvell makes $10 million at Florida State. Mario Cristobal at Miami makes 8.7. And then Pat Narduzzi makes fourth. He makes $6.7 million. But also, too, the amount of investment that Pitt's made in terms of football and basketball has been remarkable. I mean, it's been a lot of support from the board of trustees. the chancellor, whether it's been Chancellor Gallagher, he did a tremendous job. Heather Lyke, when she was here for the facility upgrades, what she's done. I mean, like any other athletic department, I think there's a lot more athletic departments that are in the red compared to others. But overall, I think that when you look at this from a top to bottom, they are in the red. But the only way that they start eliminating sports, which is very probable, I would say at this point, Gary, to be quite honest with you, very probable. There's going to be some sports that are cut because there's unlimited scholarships at this point. We're going to have revenue sharing of 23 to 25 million. I think 75 to 80% of it will go to football. And then it will be divvied out from there. Basketball will get a lot of it too. But I think overall, guys, I mean, it's going to be pretty tight. And it's not going to be just Pitt, by the way, Gary. It's not going to be just Pitt. It's going to be every university around the country. I mean, there's Big Ten teams already talking about cutting sports. Just how it is. And NIL has crushed us in a way that happens. And there's nothing we can do for that. Icy Light Mango season. Appreciate the support as always. A $4.99 super chat. I appreciate it. I'm down if they have a 13.9% players fee to my season tickets. I will do anything to help this team succeed. Icy Light again. Thank you so much for your support. Always on Twitter, but always here on the podcast. I appreciate it on YouTube. So 13.9%, which would be pretty funny. I actually would support that too. But I would think at this point, he's probably going to bring what he brought at Tennessee. And he's been Alan Green from numerous people I've talked to. He is a guy that he's a lovable guy. People love him from anywhere he's worked at. Obviously, they told him, numerous people from what I was told is that numerous athletic directors around the country told him to resign at the Auburn job because Auburn's a mess. I mean, I posted a picture today on Twitter and on Facebook on the Pitt Panther Fanatics. Look at what Brian Harsin did, and look what what's the current coach's name right there right now? What's his name? Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze hasn't been ranked at Auburn. Brian Harsin was ranked 9 weeks at Auburn. I mean, and he didn't even last 2 years there. I can tell you, it's the problem wasn't Alan Green's and a lot of the facade stories, but a hot tub or whatever the hell they were talking about. That was just to try to get him fired, and he ended up resigning because it just wasn't worth it. He's a great guy. I mean, overall, anybody you talk to loves him. That's why ADs told him they just resign and get out. We'll hire you over here, and you'll still make great money. But overall, Auburn is just so diluted by the donors that run that program. Hugh Freeze, who's done a really good job anywhere he's gone. Obviously, he's had a number of scandals when he was at Ole Miss. But I mean, he won at Ole Miss. He won at Liberty. He's not winning at Auburn. Why? Because the donors and the people who are in charge of that athletic department just ruined that football team. And there's too much say, and there's too many talking heads from everywhere to where it's not just him. And he has been at the forefront of college football. By the way, people ask me all the time, you never ever saw Heather Lyke out in the public talking to the media. Hell, we didn't see Heather Lyke for like a year and a half, which was ridiculous. And then when we did see her, she was talking about the Victory Heights project. And then when people asked her questions about, hey, what are you doing for NIL? She was kind of dismissive and kind of pissed off that she was asked that question. And people weren't just ecstatic about Victory Heights. I kind of told you what you needed to know. But this guy, he has done a great job of generating revenue for football and basketball. He will do that for football. He will do it overall for the athletic department. And I expect that 10% fee to come over here, and I think it should, because I think what people will understand is our season ticket holders will do that 10% fee, which will go to NIL, which will be huge for the athletic department. And then, two, the initiatives that Alliance 412 is doing currently right now. But obviously with Alan Green coming in to really bring on corporate sponsorships, man, we are in Pittsburgh. We are in a top 28 market in the country. There are plenty of corporate sponsorships that we currently have. Heather Lyke just didn't have that expertise. Her expertise was in compliance for where she came from. Ohio State. She came from Michigan. She worked for the NCAA for a number of different years. When you look at Alan Green, he's about business development, chief operating officer, deputy athletic director. He's about business development. He's about creating revenue for the athletic department. And you're going to see that whenever he gets here. But to your point, Ice Light Mango, I would support it. I think 13-9 would be pretty funny. Just because the significance behind that. But overall, I'm in support of it. I'm a season ticket holder. I would support that next year when buying season tickets. And shout out to Loyal Sons, the Twitter account. Obviously, they're a good bunch of guys out of Pitt. Obviously, Pitt alums. They had a poll recently out and said, "Hey, asking Pitt fans, would you support that 10% fee?" And it was like 85% yes. So I mean, people are on board as well, and I expect that to stay. And I think that would be really huge overall for the athletic department, but more importantly for NIL. Because at the end of the day, guys, NIL is not going anywhere. We have to be able to pay players, keep players here. We have something truly special going on right now at the University of Pittsburgh, and we got to keep talent here. And NIL is the way to go. We have the resources. We have everything we need. We've got good football coaches. There's no reason why we can't be successful and be dominant in terms of what we need to do in terms of college football. That's my take. But Icy Light Mango, I appreciate you. And then your donation and your super chat, it certainly means a lot. Again, I appreciate it. The second super chatter of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen, obviously John Marzullo. It pops up here on my screen. It's like the first two ones that pop up whenever you do a super chat. So John Marzullo, I appreciate you. And obviously, too, Icy Light Mango, I appreciate you as well. And certainly appreciate the comment. Overall, though, guys, it's been an extremely hyped time for Pitt football. Obviously, we're an hour and 11 minutes in. Again, we have now 800, what does that say there? 805 people watching the show right now on the podcast. Again, if you're over on X, head over to YouTube, hit the like button. It's free. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're going at a rapid rate, so I appreciate everything that you guys do. If there are no more super chats, obviously, Gary Landfeld, appreciate you, my man. Appreciate you having the best information. Gary, I appreciate all your support you do for the podcast as well. Adam does a great job here as well. John does a great job as well. Appreciate everything you guys do for the podcast. Guys, the Steeler game is going to be getting on, so I don't want to hold you guys, obviously, because you guys are obviously Steeler fans. I don't want to hold you back from that. Guys, this has been another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. I'll be releasing content throughout the week, ranking ACC teams. The preview will come out probably on Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll be recording that, obviously, and we'll get that out. But that'll be a fun time. Guys, as always and forever, hail to Pitt and hail to the ACC. I'll see you guys next time.